Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Basketball Maestros podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about more in depth of the better teams and the more disappointing teams of the NBA so far in the regular season. We're still chugging along, so we're going to give our analysis on some teams that we want to highlight today, the good and the bad. We're also going to be doing a little fantasy basketball update as usual and highlighting NFL this past weekend. So we'll see where that takes us. Starting off with the NFL, week 9, I believe it was. And I'm gonna keep it a buck. I saw the Saints were playing Monday night against the Baltimore Ravens at home. Automatically just chalked it up as a loss. Didn't really have much willpower to go in and watch that game on Monday night. So checked the game like a couple hours after it started, saw we're losing, and kind of just threw it out of my memory. So that's basically all the NFL analysis I have. Not much to begin with, anyways, but that's all I got.
you know, hashtag analysis. We'll make the same joke twice. Only, only some people only be able to understand the silly joke. But yeah. So Raiders. Yeah, another tough loss on the road. Started out fast this time. Took the lead early, and then yeah, Raiders gonna Raider. Not gonna be too upset about it. I'm kind of at the point where I've said what needs to be said about this team. Nothing's changed. Defense sucks. McDaniels is a clown of a head coach. I don't know if I even should blame Carr at this point. I don't know if it's him. I don't know. I don't really know. I never know what really happens in NFL buildings, but just from my personal point of view, I just think that McDaniels is just not a leader. He's not a coach, and he just doesn't know how to lead a team. And this is the result. You have 4 blown leads now of multiple touchdowns, I think, on the season. So definitely disappointing. Saw a report today that they're probably gonna keep him the rest of the season. Um, if he does win 5 games or under, it was said that his game or his job would be he'll be on the hot seat. So I am now praying for the Raiders to go 5-11. That would make me happy. I think it's 5-12 now. I keep thinking of the 17 game schedule, but yeah, hopefully we get 5 wins. I can't believe I'm rooting for this at this point, but we have the Colts coming into town this week. Colts made some interesting moves this week, firing Frank Reich and picking up Jeff Saturday as their interim head coach. That was dominating the headlines Monday before Monday Night Football, and very, very interesting from Jim Irsay. People have their own little opinions on Jim Irsay. Mine is just a little bit of a psychopath. Sometimes when it comes to running his team, I don't think he's not the one of the smarter owners, and him and Chris Ballard definitely, in my opinion, aren't the best duo. Um, but we'll have to see. I love Jeff Saturday. He's a great guy on ESPN. He, just loves football. You can tell got a chance to play with one of the smartest quarterbacks, I'd say the smartest quarterback in NFL history, and you can argue that he's been, obviously one of the smartest centers because when you have someone that knows football like Peyton Manning, you definitely will learn a couple things here and there too. So definitely knows the game. But the only thing is a little concerning is his experience. I know that he's been around winning, he's been around Super Bowls, he's been around what it takes to be great. Um, so I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I don't really know. I'm very interested to see though what happens on Sunday. There's nothing that tells me that the Raiders should lose this game. You have a rookie quarterback, and Sam Ellinger, who is, his offensive line just isn't doing him any justice right now. They got slaughtered in New England. They gave up like 7 sacks, I think. And um, this is a perfect opportunity for that Raiders pass rush to get hot. We've been struggling all year, and this is the team that you'd expect us to kind of get it going. So we kind of hope that we pick it up at home. I mean, that's all you can really ask for. I mean, we've choked some games on the road these past 2 weeks. Obviously in Jacksonville and then getting shut out in New Orleans, but hopefully we get our third one here this week and then we go on that good old losing streak I'm hoping for. Because I mean, like I've said, I mean, we look at our schedule and you have Denver. I mean, you could already see how this team's played on the road. You go into Seattle with the way Geno's playing, that's a loss. And then we've already talked about it on this podcast. That back half of the season's definitely not looking good. So definitely interesting for the Raiders, but just to kind of close it out, I'm very excited to see what happens with the Colts and with Jeff Saturday because I like him. I think he was a really cool player. But just the lack of coaching experience in the NFL always gets me. But with former players, you know that they have more experience than a lot of these guys. I mean, he knows what it takes to have a winning locker room, a winning culture. He's been around it, so I'm not too worried. But definitely will be interesting. And yeah, that's a little bit of NFL talk. I mean, I could talk about a little bit of other things, but we'll just kind of keep it light since we are a NBA centered podcast.
Alrighty, so we'll head into some disappointing and impressive teams thus far. Now that we're about a week or so into the season after we first initially touched on this, I'm going to start off with a positive. I think the team on everybody's mind right now is the Utah Jazz. At the time of this episode, they are currently number 1 in the West. And if you told me that this would happen, I would have said you're taking crack cocaine because this team has respectfully no business to even be in the top 10 of the West. And sure enough, here they are at 10-3, all against quality teams too. Just putting up 130, 140 on the Lakers. So this team, do I dare say legit? I don't know if I want to go that far, but I think they're definitely going to be, could very well be a playoff team. They could be that one team. There's usually a team every season that kind of is that Cinderella story, and it's looking like it's the Utah Jazz. Will Hardy, didn't know much about him, but knew he was a lead assistant in Boston, and he really has those guys playing really hard, playing loose, and just playing fun basketball. You can tell this team really doesn't care about all the expectations heading into this season about tanking and all that stuff. They're just going out there playing basketball, not really putting too much thought into it and not overthinking each game they play. And you can see it. They just play so freely. They play hard on defense. And they've been very quality teams. They've been the Grizzlies twice, the Nuggets, the Mavericks, and they just recently beat the Hawks as well. So this team is definitely making wavelengths throughout the NBA community, and one of the teams they lose to is the Houston Rockets, which is, out of all teams, surprising that they lose to them. But I think just this team is obviously just the bright spot out of the season thus far. Very weird rankings in the NBA so far, but overall, the Utah Jazz have just been a really good, feel strong story. With Will Hardy being a really good coach and showing what he's capable of. And you have guys like Larry Markkinen, Kelly Olynyk, Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson's playing out of his mind. Um, you have Colin Sexton as well, Walker Kessler being a pretty good first round pick so far. So overall, just a really fun group to watch. I sadly had to watch them play against the Lakers twice. I watched them play against the Clippers too, and they're just really fun to watch. Jordan Clarkson, in those games, was playing really well, shooting the hell out of the basketball. Larry Markkinen playing really good as well. I believe he dropped like 38 against the Hawks. So he's played really well, and just this whole team is just complementing each other. It's not really a one man show. They just really play as a team. So starting off with my first positive team, I would say the Utah Jazz would be my first one.
So, for me, it's probably not going to be like positive team that everyone kind of would say, but for me, it's the Suns. Beginning of the season, you can go back. I was not very high on the Suns coming in, and they've kind of shown that they're playing better than I expected. I know it's only like it's still a little too early to kind of know, but Devin Booker this year has been absolutely insane. He's been playing really well. And I mean, they only have 3 losses, and it's to the Trailblazers twice, which is kind of surprising, especially now when they played them without Dame and they lost one. And the Sixers. So I mean, haven't really been losing. They have pretty big wins against. They blew out the Warriors. Everyone remembers that good old night where Clay lost his mind. They came back by double digits against the Mavericks at the beginning of the season. They've beaten the Pelicans. They've beaten the Clippers. I mean, they've had really nice wins, and just today beating the Timberwolves didn't really look too much of a competition. I mean, Booker dropped 32, so I mean, this team's definitely looking good. If as long as Booker plays well, obviously you're going to see good results. And then you have Chris Paul leading the team in assists and steals, which was pretty obvious, and obviously in rebounds. So. Only thing I'd say about this team is kind of what I was saying in the beginning, is I want to see a little bit more from Ayton. He's only averaging 15 and 8 right now. So I mean, that's the only thing that I think me and Matt both said this. It's kind of the one thing that kind of holds this team back is just Ayton a little bit. Sometimes if he can really just become that dominant center that people expected him to be, then this team can be so much better. But obviously losing Cameron Johnson to a torn meniscus, he's out for a couple months, so we'll have to really see how their depth kind of treats them. Obviously, having Jay Crowder still technically on the roster, but he's said multiple times he's not going to dress up for the team, so that's definitely hurting at the moment. But yeah, this team's definitely impressed me so far. Like I said, I don't think it's impressing for a lot of other people, but for me, I just was not high on this team coming into the season, and they've definitely proven me wrong. So we'll have to see if they keep this up throughout the year, but they've played pretty good these first 10 games.
So heading into a disappointing aspect so far, I would say a pretty disappointing team to me is the Golden State Warriors, the defending champions. Many people thinking they're going to repeat this year or should be the favorite heading into this year. Currently standing at 4-7, and some of these games have not been pretty. They were recently on a road trip where they didn't win a single game. They lost to the Hornets, the Pistons, the Heat, the Magic, the Pelicans, all on the road. So very, very rough road trip. And recently picked up a win against the Kings, which had a very controversial call, which looking back at it, was definitely a foul on Klay Thompson, but that's another story. But the Warriors desperately needed that win, and their next game is against the Cavaliers, so definitely a tough one for that game. But they still got some pretty easy games coming up. against the Spurs, the Kings. You got the Rockets, you got the Knicks in there. So still got some winnable games up ahead, but this team has not looked good, especially with all the high expectations. I think the model of incorporating the vets and the young players has kind of hurt them to a certain extent. Um, Personally, I can speak from experience. The James Wiseman experience has not looked pretty at all. I had him on my fantasy team coming into this year. I thought he was going to be a pretty solid minute backup big for the Warriors, like high 20 minutes, maybe even push for the starting spot for Kevon Looney. But man, Wiseman looks rough. I've seen uh, some extent of Warrior games from time to time, and James Wiseman just does not look as engaged as you would like. I saw a TikTok about a guy talking about James Wiseman, and his stats on the court are just atrocious. I think he's like a negative 22 when he's on the court. So obviously the Warriors are not doing good without or with him on the court. He was recently a DMP against the Sacramento Kings, so that tells you the story right there. And he's just not a very attentive big. He sets very lackluster screens. Constantly gets out rebounded, allows offensive rebounds. He's caught ball watching, not boxing out, and I can imagine that's very frustrating for Warrior fans, especially for a number 2 overall pick, which honestly I forget sometimes. And I feel like the expectations for him have just completely fallen off. I feel like nobody really expects much out of him, but you just gotta see something out of James Wiseman, especially if you're trying to develop the youth like Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Wiseman, and Dante DiVincenzo as well. He's still a pretty young player, and Patrick Baldwin, the guy they drafted this past draft. So they're kind of the game plan for them was just incorporate the youth this year and just incorporate them in a winning fashion. And so far, that has not materialized. And I think it's just been mainly the young guys. It's just showing that they're not quite ready for winning basketball. Jordan Poole was kind of that guy that stepped up for them last year. And so far, Jordan Poole, that's another guy. He's been kind of disappointing this year as well. Pretty streaky shooting. Hasn't really put up the production or taken that step that people were expecting coming in this year. And personally, I was expecting him to take a leap this year. And so far, that has not materialized. But granted, we're still very young into the season, so things can change in a blink of an eye. But if a team's gonna flip a switch on, it's the Golden State Warriors. But so far, you just don't expect them to come out of the gate this lackluster, and I don't think it's anything to do with the veterans. Clay, granted, he's looked pretty bad in terms of shooting numbers, but their starting five has been really good. Statistically they've been really good. So I'm not really concerned about the veterans. I'm more concerned about the production of the bench pieces, which is basically just all their young players. So we'll see how they turn it around if they do. Still a lot of games to be played, and we'll see how these young guys respond. Yeah, that's just one of my disappointing teams for me personally.
Yeah, so another disappointing team this time coming from the East is the Miami Heat. They are just 4-6 in their last 10, losing their last 2. Standing at 4-7 right now. Currently 12th in the East, right behind the Nets, and this is a team that a lot of people were expecting a lot more out of coming into the season. This is a team that you could a lot of people thought were gonna make it in the like, Eastern Conference Finals, be that top four seed, and just right now, it doesn't look like it's clicking right now. But like we said, with all these other teams, it definitely is early into the season. Jimmy's playing all right. Bam, it's kind of the same situation with not as much as DeAndre Ayton, but I just want to see a little bit more to Bam. And then Lowry, all those concerns last year with how he kind of has fallen off, and this year he's definitely been a little questionable here and there, um, and definitely a little up and down here at times. So you just kind of want to see him be a little bit more consistent, but yeah, this team's been a little bit weird for me. I mean, you look at their games. I mean, they beat Toronto, they've beaten Portland, and then they just drop games against like Sacramento, Indiana, and even the Bulls. I mean, I'm not really high on the Bulls at all. So I mean, it's just it's just a little bit of it's just weird looking at their schedule. I mean, they just haven't. They've kind of played the same teams over and over again. So I mean, they kind of went 1-1 in those series. Like the Kings, they split that series 1-1. They split their Warrior series 1-1, and same with the Raptors right now. I mean, no, they're going to play them a couple more times, but right now they're 1-1 against them on the season. So just kind of want to see them step up, especially against those teams I feel like they should beat, like the Blazers. I mean, regardless of the Blazers playing really well so far this season, I just still feel like that the Heat should be able to beat that team. But coming up, they do have a back-to-back with Charlotte, so I mean, they should be looking to kind of get some wins there. But no, this team, like Matt was saying, kind of with the I think it was with the Jazz. It's still early. Still early. You don't want to kind of write teams off. Obviously, 10 games in the season because we all remember what happened last year. Celtics, people were writing them off towards the end of December, early January, and then they go on this huge run. So kind of around there is when you'll start seeing people really write off teams. But right now, I'm not really worried about the Heat. Just these first 10 games kind of have me a little disappointed in them, but nothing too big to where I'm kind of just saying what this team is not what we thought they were. So um, definitely a team to kind of see if they can kind of pick it up. But yeah,
Another impressive team to me, the Milwaukee Bucks, currently standing at a 10-1 on the year, suffering their first defeat against the Atlanta Hawks the other day, where they got kind of smoked on, and that was a game where they had their starters playing. Giannis didn't look too well. He had some bad turnovers and stuff of that nature, but um, the Hawks without Trae Young really stepped up and took out a Bucks team which was basically at full strength. So props to them. But besides that game, the Bucks have looked really good this year. Giannis being the monster that he is. Shout out to Giannis on my fantasy team. He's looked really great as well. Hopefully his knee injury isn't uh, too long. I don't think it's serious, but watch it come back and bite me. But hopefully he's back. I don't think it's going to be a lingering issue, but nonetheless, the Bucks have looked really good. Just an overall really deep roster. You have a team going into OKC at the time of this recording today in a thrilling double overtime game with no Giannis, no Chris Middleton, no Drew Holiday, and you have Javon Carter dropping 36 points, 12 assists. You have their rookie Beauchamp chipping in 19, Bobby Portis 13, Brooke Lopez looking like Brooklyn Nets Lopez with 24 and 13, Grayson Allen with 18, George Hill with 12 off the bench. So just everybody on the Bucks team really chipped in for this win, and it is against the Thunder, but just to have a team with no 3 stars and be able to gut one out like that is very impressive. And the Bucks have just been chugging along so far, and this is all without Chris Middleton being there and Giannis missing 2 games. So the Bucks have just looked really strong. Their roster has looked really strong, and dare I say, be the favorite in the East so far. I think this is probably the best the Bucks have looked in a while, even though they just came off a championship. But I'm interested to see how this team looks at full strength with Chris Middleton coming back. Not sure when he's coming back into the fold, but the Bucks have just looked really strong, as we kind of all expected. They've been in the contender talk for a couple of years now, so not really surprising to see them um, be good, but just to come out of the gates at 10-1 with missing Middleton is a little surprising to me, in my opinion. But it just goes to show that this Bucks team is really well constructed, and interested to see how they look come around when all their stars get healthy, which I would assume is relatively soon.
So, a team that's kind of surprised me so far this season is the Hawks. We had a lot of talks coming in of how we were interested to see how Young and Murray would perform together, and I'd say so far it's definitely looking good. Right now, Trey Young's averaging 28 points and 9 rebounds, while Dejounte Murray's averaging 22 and, or I mean 9 assists. Sorry for Young, and then Dejounte Murray is averaging 22 and 8. So definitely two guys that you kind of know that needed to get the ball in their hands, and I think it's working out really well so far. I've kind of liked what I've seen when I've seen my little fair share of Hawks games. Sitting at 7-4 right now. Obviously, you kind of like to see him be a little bit higher, but I think just kind of what we were expecting coming into the season, how it was such a question mark. I've liked what I've seen. And they've picked up some impressive wins. Obviously, you mentioned that Bucks win a couple nights ago. Beating the Pelicans at home was a pretty big game to win, and I'm definitely interested to see what this team can kind of offer more as the season goes on. Trey Young is playing really well. Have him on my fantasy team, and he is just really a smile when he just pops off. But just some players that have been kind of disappointing to me so far is definitely John Collins. Um, expect a little like I feel like I'm saying the same thing here, but I mean he's only averaging 13 and 9. You know, for a player like that, you kind of want him to do a little bit more. And then, I mean, Clint Capella's role is kind of already solidified. He's just that big. He'll get rebounds. We already know what type of player he is. And the only thing that worries me about this team is just depth, really. You kind of look at their bench, and it really doesn't. None of the names really pop out to you. I mean, you look at their minutes right now, and the guys who are kind of that bench unit. It's Aaron Holiday, Justin Holiday, Jalen Johnson, AJ Griffin. It's like, these really aren't guys when you see other bench unit comes in, and I don't think that they'll be able to really compete. But they are missing good old Bogdan.
Oh
Matt,
man,
oh, that's a little bit of an inside joke right there. But once Bogdanovich gets back, you can kind of see the bench and the depth kind of get a little bit more a little bit better, but nothing too big to where it really tells me that this team has a good bench unit. But still a lot of season left, like we said, with all these teams. And right now they are sitting as the 4th seed. I could definitely see them finishing around 4 to 6. That's kind of where I put their ceiling as, and I'm really excited to see what this team does because the duo of Trey Young and Dejounte Murray definitely looks good so far, and I just want to see what they can kind of provide for the rest of the season. Defense also kind of worries me with this team, but it's whatever.
going into another disappointing team. I think it's kind of obvious. Brooklyn Nets, we talked about it last episode, and with just all the shenanigans going on, I won't talk too much about it. Just wanted to give a little update that the Nets ended up not hiring Ime Udoka, which is, when I first saw it, was very surprising. Uh, it was first reported that it was like 24 to 48 hours was expected. The Nets and Udoka to reach an agreement to be the next Nets head coach, and kind of went radio silence there for a couple days, and today Jacques Vaughn was recently named the head coach, and I'm interested why they didn't really. There wasn't much noise about interviews. Um, Granted, there's probably not many coaching candidates out there during a season, but to name him as a head coach for a couple of years is interesting to me. I feel like the Nets probably could have just named him interim head coach for just the rest of the year and just do some head coach searching at the end of the year, which is interesting to me. Jacques Vaughn has some coaching stops in Orlando, where he was most noticeable there, and honestly not too familiar with his coaching style, but hey, he's gotten them a couple wins so far. Had a heartbreaking loss in Dallas, um, which was an entertaining game, but Kevin Durant missing a free throw, which is very rare in crunch time. But nonetheless, they're up to 5-7 after a pretty horrendous start. So at least Jacques Vaughn's got them winning games, but so far they're still disappointing just with all the shenanigans going on off the court. So I'm interested to see how Jacques Vaughn is able to, if he's able to get the best out of this Nets team with everything going on. Because this year is probably the worst the Nets drama has been. So we'll see how they look moving forward. But can't complain if Jacques Vaughn's getting you some wins. So yeah, the Nets have been a little disappointing. They're on the rise. Hopefully they can start turning it around and move past all this drama and focus on some basketball once and for all. But it's probably never going to go away until Kyrie gets back, if he comes back to the court after his suspension. So Kyrie's still obviously a very big part of this Nets team. So we'll see how that all settles down and how long that takes. But for now, the Nets guy just keep chugging along and sitting at the 11th seed in the East. Obviously, is not great for a team with a lot of expectations and star power. So time will tell with this team, as I'm pretty sure I said last episode when we were talking about all this stuff. We'll see how impactful all this drama becomes for this Nets team, and yeah, but so far still disappointing to me in my eyes. If you have any more disappointing teams.
Yeah, I just kind of say, I mean, just the last two disappointing ones, but I've already kind of gone over them. Obviously, is the Sixers. You expect more to this team. Um, Obviously, with Harden now being out for a month, kind of gets a little bit more scuffed, but kind of hope that team picks it up midseason. And then we already know Lakers 2-9. Um, we've already talked about them enough, but I think that's probably my most disappointing team this year. Just we already knew they were going to be bad, but 2-9 is just a different level of bad. So yeah, that's just it's one of my two last two. But I've already we've definitely explained our reasons for why the Lakers are bad and the Sixers are. It's just you have talent and it's just not working out right now. And obviously injuries kind of suck right now with them, but just hope that Doc can find a way.
And that's asking a lot of Doc Rivers, because we all know how that goes when it comes to big situations, aka the bubble playoffs. But moving on to quick fantasy basketball update. I had a nail biter last game, or last week I should say, against good old Jared Korpash. Won by about 7 points, 6 points. Um, very, 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 very close game. And it all came down to two players that are very interesting. It all came down to Kelly Olynyk and Ivica Zubats to win Jared the game. And fortunately, it was very close. Zubats was one rebound shy of a triple double, geez, a double double, and that definitely would have helped his case. But nonetheless, got bailed out. Got to 3-0, and you know, Shea played pretty mid. I believe on Saturday it was, yeah, Saturday against the Bucks. Didn't have the greatest game, and Giannis ended up getting ruled out in that game as well. So losing out on two of my top scorers hurt pretty drastically, especially late in the matchup. But nonetheless, somehow pulled it out. Now moving on to the team I should beat. Currently 0-3, Eric Hoja. Currently up by like 40-ish points. Looking good in terms of heading to 4-0. Currently, it is only me, Daniel, and Brody as the last three undefeated teams. And we'll see how that materializes going forward. But I want to go on a little tangent about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. You know, he's a guy that I haven't watched much of because I don't think many people in the NBA world are watching OKC Thunder games, but I think today watching OKC and Milwaukee in that double overtime game was kind of just my awakening of how great Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is. Currently the number one point guard in our fantasy league, averaging 60, basically 61 fantasy points if you round up, but he's just looked very solid this year, averaging 31 points on the year, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. He's just looked really, really good this year. And I think he's just my favorite point guard to watch. Honestly, he's just a 3-level scorer. His 3-point shooting isn't the greatest, but he can hit them when he needs to. He's just very methodical. He just knows the game. His IQ is really good. Just knows how to get downhill, get to the basket, find his teammates, and overall, just a really good young player. And I will admit, for the longest time, my favorite point guard was Kyrie Irving, but stuff happens, so kind of had to pivot off that. And I think I've landed on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I want to thank him for coming into my life in fantasy and showing me how great of a player he truly is. And overall, he's made me very happy, and I'm sure he will continue to do so moving forward. Knock on wood, praying he doesn't get injured, but sure enough, I'm sure I'll get the injury bug at some point, already getting it a little bit. After that little tangent, I'll talk about briefly some other guys. OG Anunoby has played pretty solid with Pascal being injured for an extended period of time. He's kind of just viewed as the number one guy, as well as Van Fleet and Gary Trent to carry the team in the meanwhile. And he's definitely shouldered the load against Houston today, putting up 27 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals. He's just looked very solid the past couple of games, and can't complain much from him. Valanciunas, he's been kind of hit and miss due to small ball restrictions, but today had a rebound game, played solid against the Bulls. Aaron Gordon has also been another pleasant surprise for me. Played very good against the Pacers in the comeback win for the Nuggets, having 18 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists. With Jokic in foul trouble, he just played really well, and that was a nice welcome sight. And I'm pretty sure I said it before. Royce O'Neal, my guy, my dog. Last pick in the draft, continuing to produce. Granted, he's been on my bench the past couple of days due to full lineups, but still seeing his production on my bench. So giving me more confidence to put him in full lineup situations. So I'll consider that moving forward. But Troy Brown has also been a guy I took a gamble on, and he's had a couple blowout games ish, but we'll evaluate him a little more on a week to week basis. And yeah, those are kind of just my guys. How I feel about my team so far. Um, hopefully, Giannis's knee injury isn't too serious. I don't think it is. I think it's just kind of precautionary. And the other injury I have is Nurkic, which I'm uncertain about how serious that is. He was ruled out for a thigh injury, so we'll see how that moves, how that looks moving forward. But overall, can't complain. Teams looked good so far. No injury bugs yet, so can't really complain much there, and hopefully it stays that way. But deep down, I no, well,
So, last week, had a little bit of a close one with our good friend Ryan. Um, Came down to the last day, and I got a little bit bailed out. Only had two players. A good Sunday in Ayo Dosamu, you say his name, so we'll never get it right. And Reggie Jackson, they put up a solid 22 fantasy points. Really, just good streaky players. Um, and then Ryan had a chance to come back, and ultimately, the King failed him, which put a smile on my face. So now we're 3-0. And like Matt was saying, I'm going against Brody this week, who's also 3-0. Um, and things are not looking good at the moment. We are down, I think, 70-ish, 70 points right now. Things were looking good today until CJ decided to play terrible. Until Brogdon decided that his hamstring was tight. No, but all seriousness, hope he's fine. Um, but had a little bit of unlucky plays on Monday. Decided to start Christian Wood. He obviously got hurt. Decided to start Desamu. He didn't play well. Reggie Jackson played better. Kenyon Martin Jr. had 40 fantasy points. I started Lou Dort, who had 17. So just a little bit of unlucky people on my bench. And then today, obviously, I put up 300 points. Birdie puts up, I think he put up like 370 for today. So gonna have to step it up these next couple of games. But Trey getting hurt kind of hurt me this week. I think he was out Monday. Yeah, he was out Monday. So having him out has been a little bit rough. CJ has been playing bad these past couple games, which is also a little rough. And then my other role players have just been kind of up and down here. Definitely need the Heat to play again soon because I need Jimmy Butler back out there, please. And then I still think we can come back. Al Horford has just become a dog, dude. He hasn't scored under 25 since November 2nd. He is just turning back the years, realistically. I
beat the
mean,
waiver allegations.
he really did. He has earned himself a spot on this roster for a couple more weeks. Um, but yeah, so the team's definitely been impressive. Wait, Kevin Durant had 85 fantasy points today.
Jesus, man.
No, real quick, what is my luck and these players, man? When I played Luca, he had 300 fantasy points in a week. The next week, how many did Luca have last week? 144. Like, dude.
144. Oh man.
But against me, he decides to. Oh, Durant had 256 last week. So far, he already has 131. Wow. You know, my team's having an off week when my third leading scorer is Lou Dort at 50 fantasy points.
Wow.
So
And
let's just
Isaiah
hope.
Stewart's your second.
What?
Isaiah Stewart's your second leading scorer so far.
Isaiah Stewart's just a dog, man. Like, look at his stats. Like, he is a consistent 30-point
What? He averages
player.
32.
Yep, he's a dog.
Wow.
But I the AO Desamu and Brogdon and Reggie Jackson and Dennis Smith Jr. quad stack or whatever. It's definitely a stack that I'm kind of getting over with at this point. It's either I get 30 fantasy points out of them or I get a solid like 10. So changes might be coming in soon. So I gotta say, hopefully not through waivers because Matt can attest that the waivers are really bad. So I mean, I'm really hoping that we can get on the phones. I definitely don't want to go on the phones with Matt and Ryan because I'm gonna get the same shit players over and over again. I could already tell you that if I were to ask Matt for a player or trade, the first two names he'd give me are Karis LeVert and Dylan Brooks. So
Your
those
dogs.
are those are guys I don't want, and I could guarantee you Ryan's gonna try to sell me on what is it? Cam Thomas, Bogdan, Santi Aldama. I can guarantee you he'll try to sell Justice Winslow, which he literally picked up off waivers 2 days ago. So I'm very scared. This team isn't looking good. My undefeated streak might come to an end, but we have Trae Young, Jimmy Butler tomorrow. Hopefully CJ can finally remember how to shoot a basketball, and I don't know how long. Let me look up. How long does a left knee take sprain? Knee sprain.
Wait, who has a knee sprain?
6 weeks.
Wait, who has a knee sprain?
Christian Wood.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Injury bug is catching up. Not Horford. Wood's out. Brogdon's out. Trae Young was out. Jimmy Butler and like Kyle Lowry are always like scary because they can be rest days. Horford gets his rest days because he's old. Things aren't looking good. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. When Jaren Jackson comes back, this team will be a bunch of dogs. Whenever he comes back in February.
Yeah, give him like 3 more months.
It's fine. It's fine. You gotta play the long game sometimes. Just like you played with Jamal Murray like 2 years ago. How'd that work out for you?
Yikes. When I thought he would help me in the playoff run, and he just never came back.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so as I would say in the waivers, I would analyze them or justify them as the toy chest, as kind of just like my metaphor for the waivers, On the surface, it looks absolutely horrid, but you gotta do a little digging in the toy chest and find
I don't want to.
the good toys,
There's too much.
There's none in there,
No.
but you can try if you keep digging, which and now just from the three of us, me, Daniel, and our friend Ryan, we've tried a lot of toys, and so far not many of them have materialized, so I'm sure we'll continue to use that revolving door around the waivers. But Dylan Brooks, you mentioned him, and I am still waiting for the day where he has a actual respectable shooting performance. And I was watching the Grizzlies today, and Dylan Brooks made a three in overtime, and the Grizzlies announcer said that he was having a rough shooting game, and
Isn't he always?
that's exactly what I said. I'm like, it's always a rough shooting day, and he averaged 18 last year, and I'm kind of just holding on to the copium of he'll eventually turn it around at some point. But I gotta look at it glass half full. Traded away Cam Johnson for him, and Cam Johnson has a torn meniscus. Granted, he's only out for a month or two, but could have at least a somewhat respectable player putting up what's supposed to be good numbers, but we'll see if he can turn it around. He's had a couple pop off performances and shooting 56%, or no, sorry. I was going to say, no way he's shooting 56% from three. But regardless, he's still shooting 40% from three, taking 5 attempts. So he's launching. He's just got to see the ball go through the hoop, and I believe in my guy, Dylan Brooks. He's gonna come around, and I believe in him. But that's our little fantasy check-in. We'll hop into some predictions for the Friday night games, and kicking it off, it will be the Denver Nuggets heading to Boston. This will be a good game. It is televised on NBA TV, so I'm sure this will be a good one. I'll take the Celtics in a relatively close game, but I think the home court of Boston will probably be the deciding factor in this one. Next, Phoenix traveling to Orlando. I'll take the Suns in that one, even though Orlando has been pretty competitive, beating the Mavs on Wednesday, so got a pretty good win. But Magic's still a young team, so Detroit heading up to MSG, Madison Square Garden, to take on the New York Knicks. I will be taking the New York Knicks in this one. Pistons showed flashes early in the season, but have just looked pretty rough the last couple of games, so I'll be taking the Knicks. Raptors heading up to OKC. I'll take the Raptors as well. Even though their record is 7-5, doesn't necessarily reflect how good they looked in this early part of the season. I really like the Raptors moving forward, but yeah, I'll take the Raptors in that matchup. Milwaukee at San Antonio. Question marks around Giannis and if Drew Holiday is going to be healthy for that one. I would assume so, but regardless, I'll probably take the Bucks no matter what. Nationally televised game, ESPN, Timberwolves at Memphis. You know how I feel about the Timberwolves. I'm not necessarily high on them, and recently getting blown out by the Phoenix Suns. So, I'll take the Memphis Grizzlies in this matchup. Cleveland at Golden State. This has potential to be a pretty good game, depending on how the Warriors play. Hoping it's a close game, but I'll probably take the Cavs in this one. Coming off a rough game in Sacramento and losing to the Clippers. Starting off 8-1 on a little 2-game losing streak. We'll see if they can turn it around. In Golden State, won't be an easy game by any means, especially just by the Warrior crowd in the Chase Center. But I'll go on a limb and take the Cavs in this matchup. And then they always have to make an appearance somehow. Sacramento Kings visit the LA Lakers. LA Lakers currently standing at a 2-9, a whopping 2-9. Is only the Lakers and the Rockets currently with only 2 wins on the year. So I'll go on a limb. Even with LeBron, dealing with some groin issues after the Clipper game, I'll take the LA Lakers. Eventually we gotta start winning, right? Surely. So
Surely.
I'll take the LA Lakers in that matchup, but not feeling overly confident about that one. It's just the homer pick inside of me, but then again, I can't really handle being a Laker fan anymore, but God bless.
Right. Um, so we got the Nuggets going to visit good old Celtics in Boston. I'm gonna take the Nuggets there. They get a big, absolutely big time road win. Phoenix Suns traveling to Orlando. I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the Magic. I like their young core. I know they are 3-9, I think, but um, I think this team definitely has a bright young future. Um, Regardless of that being said, I don't see them beating the Suns, so I'll take the Phoenix Suns in that one. Detroit Pistons visiting good old Knicks. I'll take the Knicks. Raptors and the Thunder. I will take the Raptors, even with you know Shea having an insane game. It's still not enough to be an injury-filled Bucks. So it doesn't. Anything about this Thunder team does not tell me I'm picking this team over the Raptors. So I will take the Raptors. Milwaukee visiting San Antonio. This will be my big little upset because I am assuming that Giannis and Drew will be out again. So I will take the good old Spurs. I think they still have a good little core there with Vassell and I can't remember the other one's name,
Eldon.
Keldon. Um, I think they still make some games competitive, and I could definitely see them getting a win here at home. Timberwolves gonna go to Memphis. Um, we've already voiced our frustration, well, not frustration, our disappointment in the Timberwolves this season, and after a blowout loss tonight, I see them losing again. Memphis is just a better team. I mean, just look better, play like a team more. They just all around look better. The Cavs playing the Warriors. I'm gonna take the Cavs here. I really like what I'm seeing out of the Cavs this season, and I think the Warriors continue their little bit of struggles in the beginning of the season. I think the Cavs go on the road and get a pretty big win um, on Friday night, and then good old Sacramento Kings making the good old trip down the 5 to come play the Los Angeles Lakers, baby. 7:30 PST time, and Laker Nation is not looking good. And every time on this show that I have picked the Lakers to lose, they've won. So I'm gonna take the Kings, and that means that your Lakers are gonna win next week. But no, in all seriousness, I'm actually taking the Kings. There's nothing that there's nothing that this team can say or do that gives me any type of confidence with them. They are just really, really, really bad. Like we've already talked about it, so it's like I can't say much more, but this team doesn't look fun to watch. I saw someone say that they've been covering the Lakers since 2013, and this is probably the worst team they've covered so
Oh
far.
yeah, I saw that tweet.
So I also saw another tweet that really embodies this team well, and it's LeBron looks like he's 28, AD looks like he's 38. So that's a perfect tweet to explain this team. But we have a good G League roster, so they're going to be on full effect on Friday. I can't just Kings beat Lakers. I don't even want to start talking more because I already know what's going to happen.
So that will be our predictions for the Friday night games, and this is we'll see how LeBron's health will be moving forward. We'll see if he dodges another bullet like 2018-19 season.
Can't wait.
So we'll reflect when that injury news comes out. But if I had to take the guess, he's probably missing a couple games. But overall, that will do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. However, you tuned in, whether it be from YouTube, from University Pulse, greatly appreciate you tuning in. Feel free to support us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on TikTok being more active on there. All users are the Basketball Maestros, so feel free to check us out. If you're new, we go live every Friday from 4 to 5 once a week, so feel free to keep checking us out. But yeah, that will do it for this episode, and we will see you guys next time.